Hey YouTubers, it's me, Lonnie Clark, Notes for Art. I hope you don't mind the noise, but I had my box fan going because it's super hot. So I am going to continue on this Weapons in Space, as you can tell by the title. So I'm going to take a 2-second here and say thank you to KEPW. I'm going to take a little break because I'm going to edit out this first part like I told you I'm doing for these edited audios for KEPW. So I want to thank KEPW LP 97.3 FM here in Eugene, Oregon for carrying this broadcast of these readings of Karl Grossman's Weapons in Space. And it was written in 2002. He gave me permission to read it on my YouTube channel, which is where it's being done. Hi, YouTubers. And I am going to continue reading. We left off, let me see, I marked it so I would see it. We left off on page 37. And let me, well, we continue. And it just says, then I got to the military connection. The desire of the U.S. military to deploy nuclear-powered weapons in space. NASA was set up in 1958 as a civilian agency, but particularly after the end of the Apollo man-on-the-moon missions and its budget was cut, it became increasingly involved with the U.S. military. Indeed, if the space shuttle program was itself created, I messed up the way he wrote that sentence, you guys. I'm sorry, I'm going to read it again. Indeed, the space shuttle program itself was created as a half-civilian, half-military program. The February 2000 mission of NASA's Endeavour space shuttle program, for example, a flight to map the Earth, was in large part a mission for the Pentagon, as some news report mentioned but did not emphasize. By using two radar antennae, one on the end of the mast and a much larger one anchored in the cargo bay, scientists hope to obtain a 3D snapshot of Earth's terrain, reported the Associated Press in the last paragraph of its account. And they expect those snapshots to be more plentiful and more accurate than any taken before, and they would be a boon to the Pentagon. The U.S. military wants nuclear-powered weapons in space, and that's been a key reason why NASA has been insisting on using nuclear power in space, even when solar power would suffice. NASA coordinates its activities with the military. Wow, I did not know that. Most recently, in 1997, NASA launched its Cassini space probe with more. Oh, yeah, this actually crashed last year. Remember the Cassini? They crashed it into Jupiter. It's been on the road since forever, and it did crash. Most recently, in 1997, NASA launched its Cassini space probe with more plutonium than ever used on a space probe, 72.3 pounds. Afraid to use a shuttle for this launch, NASA sent Cassini up in a Titan IV military rocket manufactured by Lockheed Martin. This Titan IV made it up, although 3 Titan IVs since have blown up on or soon after launching. Oh my gosh. Indeed, the Titan IV launch record is now 1 in 10. One catastrophic accident for every 10 launches, a worse record than the space shuttle has. Then in what NASA admitted was the most dangerous phase of the Cassini mission in 1999, it sent the Cassini probe, the space probe, and its pounds of plutonium fuel back from space to buzz the Earth, like they boomeranged it around the Earth. On August 17th, 1999, NASA had Cassini whip around the Earth at 42,300 miles per hour and 700 miles above it in order to give it a gravity assist push to reach its final destination of Saturn. The good news? Cassini got past, so we're not all dead. Oh, yeah. It didn't dip down into the Earth's 75-mile atmosphere and break up, as NASA conceded it would have, for Cassini had no heat shield. The bad news? On September 23rd, NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter, seeking to pass over Mars, came too close to the Martian atmosphere and crashed into the planet. That could have been Cassini crashing into Earth 5 weeks earlier. It turned out that the two teams of Mars Orbiter scientists, one of the Lockheed Martin group, the other at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, were working with different scales of measurements. 1 feet, the other meters, and that's how the crews screwed up. Oh my God. Red-faced over the red planet, metric mix-up doomed Mars spacecraft was the headline in the Associated Press story, describing how NASA's scientists' embarrassing failure to convert English units of measurement to metric ones caused the navigation error. It does not make us feel good that this happened, said Tom Gavin of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I guess not. Yes, accidents will happen when human beings are involved. Indeed. NASA did not consider human failure in its accident probability estimates because human stupidity can't be quantified. Don't we love Karl Grossman? I do. More bad news. NASA, according to the U.S. General Accounting Office report, Space Exploration, Power Sources for Deep Space Probes, is studying 8 future space missions between 2000 and 2015 that will likely use nuclear-fueled electric generators. The next nuclear-fueled mission is that of the Europa Orbiter, scheduled in 2003 to go to Europa, a moon of Jupiter, although NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory officials have been saying that the 2003 date for the Europa mission is under review. The European Space Agency, ESA, meantime has developed new high-efficiency solar cells for use in space as a substitute for nuclear power. And in 2003, ESA will launch its Rosetta probe using solar rays for power to go beyond the orbit of Jupiter to rendezvous with a comet called Wirtanen, W-I-R-T-A-N-E-N, Wirtanen. Rosetta will first come in contact with Wirtanen about 675 million kilometers from the sun, notes ESA. That's 500 million miles from the sun. At this distance, sunlight is 20 times weaker than on Earth, ESA points out. But again, NASA, seeking to coordinate its activities with the military and wanting to keep Lockheed Martin and the National Nuclear Laboratories in funds, sticks with nuclear power in space. Accidents involving nuclear devices in space are not theoretical, they are real. It's not a sky is falling issue. Accidents have already occurred in the space nuclear programs of both the U.S. and former United States, now Russia. In fact, there has been a 15% accident rate in both nations' space nuclear programs. The most serious U.S. mishap occurred on August 21st, 1964, when a U.S. navigational satellite, Transit 5B-3, powered by a SNAP 9A, SNAP means Systems Nuclear Auxiliary Power. Okay, SNAP 9A, filled with plutonium, failed to achieve orbit and fell from the sky, disintegrating as it burned up in the atmosphere. the 2.1 pounds of plutonium scattered around the world. A worldwide sampling program carried out in 1970 showed SNAP 9-A debris to be present on all continents and at all latitudes. According to the 1990 publication, Emergency Preparedness for Nuclear-Powered Satellites, a report by Europe's Organization for Economic Cooperation and the Swedish National Institute of Radiation Protection. Importantly, the type of plutonium used in space devices, Ulysses, Cassini, SNAP 9A, and the others, is plutonium-238, which is 280 times hotter than radioactivity than the more widely known plutonium isotope, plutonium-239, which is used in nuclear weapons. Dr. John Goffman, Professor Emeritus of Medical Physics at the University of California at Berkeley, an MD and PhD who developed some of the first methods of isolating plutonium for the World War II Manhattan Project, and also co-discovered several radioisotopes, including uranium-233, has long connected the SNAP 9A mishap to an increase of lung cancer on Earth. Although it is impossible, he has said, to estimate the number of lung cancers induced by the accident, there is no question that the dispersal of so much plutonium-238 would add to the number of lung cancers diagnosed over many subsequent decades. The SNAP 9A accident caused NASA to become a pioneer in developing solar photovoltaic energy technology, solar panels that convert sunlight directly to electricity, now the power system on all U.S. satellites. The worst Soviet space nuclear accident occurred on January 24, 1978, when Cosmos 954, a reconnaissance satellite powered by an onboard nuclear reactor, fell from the orbit, crashing into the Northwest Territory of Canada, splattering nuclear debris over a huge area. Eyewitnesses near the impact zone reported seeing a brilliant glowing object accompanied by at least a dozen smaller growing fragments, according to the Emergency Preparedness for Nuclear-Powered Satellites. During the first weeks of search, it became apparent that sizable amounts of radioactive debris had survived re-entry and was spread over a 600-kilometer path from Great Slave Lake to Baker Lake. Wow. The most recent Russian nuclear accident, the breakup of the Russian Mars 1996 probe with a half a pound of plutonium aboard over the border region of Chile and Bolivia on November 16, 1996. Cassini carried the most plutonium of any space device so far. And what a colossal disaster could have occurred if it had screwed up. NASA, in its final environment impact statement for the Cassini mission, said that if the probe did not fly overhead as planned, but dropped onto the Earth's atmosphere on a flyby, it would make an inadvertent re-entry, break up and release plutonium, and, these are NASA's words, approximately 5 billion of the world population at the time would receive 99% or more of the radiation exposure. Wow. And they still went ahead with it. That is so, that tells you, doesn't it? That really speaks to everything. NASA, in its statement, said that the plutonium rained down on areas of natural vegetation. It might have to relocate animals if it fell on agricultural land, ban future agricultural land uses, and if it rained down on urban areas, to demolish some of all structures and relocate affected populations permanently. And they still did it. As to the human health toll, Dr. Grossman projected 950,000 dying as a result of a Cassini flyby accident. Dr. Ernest Sternglass, Professor Emeritus of Radiological Physics at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, estimated the death toll at least 20 and 40 million people. The Outer Space Treaty has a provision that addresses damage caused by space devices. The treaty declares that a nation that launches an object into outer space is internationally liable for damage caused by it. Oh my God. What are you going to do after you've destroyed the world? A follow-up 1973 UN probe, Convention on International Liability and Damage Caused by Space Objects, says a launching state shall be absolutely liable for such damage. But in 1991, the NASA and U.S. Department of Energy entered into a space nuclear power agreement to cover U.S. nuclear space flights with the Price-Anderson Act. Oh, okay, so that means nobody can be held liable. The Price-Anderson Act makes nobody liable. This is the law which limits liability in the event of a nuclear accident to $8.9 billion for the U.S. domestic damage and $100 million for damage to all foreign nations. And this, to me, is more critical than the money. It indemnifies, that means it releases all responsibilities to any human being or any corporation who knowingly or unknowingly causes harm with nuclear radiation. That's the Price-Anderson Act. I don't care about the money. The money is useless. But to me, the fact that this is why we have Hanford. This is why we have every single hideous dump site in the country, because of these monsters of the Price-Anderson Act. Let me see what time it is. Oh, wrong glasses. Hold on, Pecan. I'm looking at the clock. I got to put my glasses back on. Oh, it's 7:29. Well, I'm going to stop because I think I've been reading for too long. So where am I? I'm going to leave it right there. I guess we're ending. Where are we leaving? Oh yeah, let's end right here. I'll read this again. The Cassini. Can you believe this Cassini? That they really, really did this? So right here, we're on page 43. I don't know about you guys, man, but this just, the complete disregard for any life, not just human, for total life. They're power crazy. These people are complete lunatics, man. No wonder we got Mad Dog Mattis running the show. Anyways, I'm going to get going, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for following my channel. And thank you to the 16 people who are listening to the station, to this, my YouTube channel. I think there's consistently 16 people who are listening to these books that I'm reading. So I really appreciate that, because that's 16 more people who otherwise wouldn't have the time or maybe the ability to read these books. I hope I'm doing a decent enough job by them. And I really appreciate it. I am going to be putting up some commentary. And I do want to let you know that my radio show is going to be up by the end of this weekend. Like, I'm definitely doing it. Anyways, put your courage feet on, you guys. I totally love you. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Bye.